And a great good Monday evening, the 3rd of February, to all of the loyal opposition. My goodness, we have just begun the year and we are into the second month already, believe it or not. And it is amazing that we have got here so quickly. And certainly we are looking forward to a great year. I hope you're looking forward to a great year. This is going to be a year, what we would term in my area, a new season, new things are going to be happening this year. And so we want to encourage you, regardless of what's happening around you, what's happening in the world, what's happening nationally, CARICOM, no matter what's happening, we want to help keep you optimistic and locked in and loaded for having a great, great year. And remember that really and truly, you cannot get through this year and you cannot engage into the things of the future if you keep dragging the past into your future with you. You're going to have to leave that behind you and embark on a new process of life, a new adventure. This is 2025, and we are looking forward to a really, really great year. And I hope you are too. It certainly began with a number of things happening. We've seen all kinds of stuff occurring. My goodness, it's just been phenomenal just over the weekend. Just over the weekend, so many things have been happening. And as a matter of fact, someone just a moment ago sent me a message letting me know that I'm just going to check back here, letting me know that there was a young child that was injured. Excuse me, that was injured just a few moments ago, and they're asking us, for prayer for that young child. And so we want to really remember that child this evening. Tonight, it's never a good thing when people are involved in traffic accidents. Period. But a young child certainly is of deep concern to us. But we've had a lot of things happening. We've had, again, robberies. We've had the central bank governor giving his report. We've had matters to do with water again, with the Barbados Water Authority attempting to allay the fears of people with regards to this dye that they're putting in the water to track the travel and movement of the water. There's a lot of things that are happening, and a lot of things that have happened. We've had the situation in Trinidad with the what was originally expressed, and this is one of the reasons I tried to do my research um, in terms of the commissioner of police there, who I heard had resigned. Then when I checked, I realized that she had not resigned, but she had been suspended. And I was just watching another report out of Trinidad where apparently all of the charges have been dropped, but we hopefully will be able to engage that tonight. I was hoping to have Senator NAHKID on with us, but he is really under the weather. He spoke with me just a few minutes ago, and you can tell, he's really, really under the weather. So we want to remember him in our prayers as well, that he gets well and is able to join us in another program. He was on with Marcia and the others over the weekend, and we certainly are aware of the things that are happening around us in Jamaica, in the Bahamas. And I recall a article a couple of years ago with the premier prime minister, I think it is, of Bermuda, who stepped off an aircraft in Miami, I think it was, and was arrested by the FBI there in Miami. It's this is the year. I believe this is going to be a year of exposure that we are going to be blown away with. We are seeing a lot of things happening in the United States, of course, like him or not like him. Donald Trump is the president of America. I've said to people, you could as well relax and recognize the fact that the elections are over. He's the president, like it or not. He's implementing processes, some of which I am in full agreement with. I am a full believer in the security of borders. I'm a firm believer in that. I don't believe that anybody who enters my country illegally is automatically entitled to residency and citizenship or anything of that nature. You have breached the law, and last I checked, when you breach the law, it's a criminal act. It's a crime. And I know there are people who would want to debate, but I'm not going to get into any debates on the matter. I'm not going to get into any debates on his decision-making processes. Some people agree, some people don't agree. But that is the beauty of democracy. And, I thank God, even here on the show, we have persons who come on here and they are strong supporters of the current administration. They express themselves here. And the one thing I demand, and I know Marcia equally demands it, is respect and to be decent and keep things in order. I don't want to see any bad language here. We will not entertain that, but we do want to keep things civil. And we do want to recognize the fact that not everyone shares the same points of view. Okay, and we respect that, and that is something we want to promote, because the far left in the United States, trying to promote it all over the world, is trying to cancel any opposition to anything they have to say, and I will not be a part of that either. I have a constitutional right to express myself and to agree or disagree. And that is a very simple position. So there's been a lot happening up there. Of course, we had the plane crashes that I understand that that's going to be touched on tonight by one of our guests. We've had 2 plane crashes there with the loss of, I think, 69 lives in one instance, and then I think 6 in the other. And no loss of life is going to be something we will rejoice. But I'm going to come back to this in just a few moments, because Marcia is reminding me, and thank you, Marcia, we're up to 200, Rev, so we need to have the national anthem. So I know Dave is in my back room there on standby. So Dave, we're going to use the national anthem at this time, and would you play it for us, please, as we begin the Marcia Week Show program this evening. Well, there again, our great and lovely national anthem. And I'm so proud to be a Barbadian today. I'm happy to be here with you, and I want to welcome all of you to this show. I began a little differently this evening, but I do want to get back to making sure that I welcome all of you. And I won't be able to call all your names, but please forgive me if I don't get all of your names called. But let me start with you, Junie Rock. Great to have you with us again tonight, Vernon Garnes and Queen Bee. The show would not be a show without you, Taroni Hall. Thank you so very much for your kind remarks. And Michael Jilts, thank you for being here again tonight. Appreciate that so very much. Of course, my faithful Marcia, who keeps me on my toes, Owen Hines, Damien, Lucinda Aline Jefferson Soberts, Judy Jilts, thank you so much for being here. Jacqueline Aline, of course, Sir Alfred Benjamin. I always look forward, sir, to seeing your name there on the listing in Brooklyn, New York. Great to have you back with us again tonight, Ridge. Pleasure to have you and Beverly Prescott, Bonnie Springer, Tony Paris. Great to have you as well. More Steve and that's Sharon Innes. Great to have you, DeCosta Fields. Everywhere I turn, it's just amazing how many people I'm encountering who are watching this show. And it's encouraging to know that we are touching the lives of so many of you, and we are bringing the truth and facts, and we're bringing different perspectives to what is happening not only in our country, but what is happening in our region and in our world. And of course, Ridge or Easy D and all of you, a real pleasure to have you all with us. Now, before we proceed any further into the night, there, Dave has sent up a reminder for me, and thank you, Dave, for our Pledge of Allegiance. I can always trust Dave to find something unique and something really wonderful to put up. I would just recite it, but it's up on the screen, and so I'm going to ask you all to repeat our national pledge of Barbados together, because we have made and we are making by our commitment a pledge to the well-being of our country. So join me as we share this pledge together. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. I want to repeat that, please. I pledge allegiance to my country, not to my party, not to my political leadership or my politicians, to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor. In other words, I'm going to live my life in such a manner, I'm going to fight for what will keep Barbados's flag flying with pride and dignity across the world. And that means that we will stand up against any anarchy. We will stand up against all of this madness, woke culture, global imposition by global elitists. We will make sure that we are friends of all and satellites of none. All right. And so we pledge allegiance to our country, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. And maybe some of our political leadership needs to take this pledge quite seriously. And so we want to welcome all of you this evening. And I want to begin the evening very, very quickly. I've asked Dave, I sent Dave a video because, the last time I was with you, Mr. Trump had issued a executive order removing the United States from the World Health Organization. And just today, I was watching several video reports on YouTube from the European Union, and it is stunning how many people are calling on their nations to follow suit. Clearly, the World Health Organization has created for itself a problem, a real problem coming out of the pandemic. They have compromised their integrity in a massive manner. They have been clearly visibly at the whim and fancy of China. And so I want to take just a couple of minutes. It's a 19-minute video, but I've just asked Dave that we will show the first couple of minutes. And this is an interview with a former World Health Organization individual who worked with them. And it's intriguing to listen to, excuse me, a former director of the World Health Organization, the person who ought to know quite a bit about this organization itself. And when we hear some of the world leaders make certain statements, we wonder about it. And remember, our own prime minister was arm in arm with Mr. Tedros down here in Barbados and implemented everything that the World Health Organization mandated. And as a matter of fact, we have now learned and we have now discovered that what we were saying, persons such as myself, Dr. McCullough, and others, there were several doctors, highly specialized doctors, MacDonald and others, several of them, Dr. Maloney, who laid bare the risks and the failures of much of what the World Health Organization imposed upon the world. They made it clear that it was not going to work. And it's good to see that now, post pandemic, what we said is now coming out to be seen clearly to be the truth. You can't hide truth forever. Old Prime Minister, Right Honorable Tom Adams, told me many years ago that truth, a lie will circle the earth 10 times while truth is putting on its shoes. And that is an experience that we're seeing even to this day. So I'm going to ask Dave to just play the first couple of minutes for this video so that you will see that what we have been saying to you is not some misconception, some misinformation, or some conscrewed idea, or what they call a conspiracy theory, but you're going to hear it from somebody who knows well. So Dave, go ahead and run that video for me, please.
Hello and welcome to GBN Health. I'm Lucy Johnston, Health and Science Editor at GB News. Now, Trump has ordered an exit from the World Health Organization in a controversial move. The United States will leave the World Health Organization, President Donald Trump said on Monday. He stated the Global Health Agency
Okay, we might be getting some buffer issues there from what I'm seeing. I don't know if you want to restart it again, Dave, and just see if we can get it running again. I'll give you a little time to do that. But you know what? Much of what we shared concerning the World Health Organization has now been proven to be factual. And incidentally, the World Health Organization was attempting to pass a resolution by consensus. That means no vote through the United Nations to take over the sovereignty of countries during the next global pandemic. That was what they were attempting to do. My understanding is that the United States of America told them, not here, not in the United States. We're not handing our sovereignty over to anyone. And we are not going to be permitting any country to take control of the sovereignty of our nation. Go ahead, Dave. Let's see if it runs okay on this occasion.
The United States will leave the World Health Organization, President Donald Trump said on Monday. He stated the Global Health Agency had mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm joined today by Professor Karol Sikora. He's a senior expert in cancer, and he also used to work for the World Health Organization. Welcome, Karol. Karol, why do you think that the UK government should follow the US in exiting the World Health Organization?
The WHO is a great organization in the past, set up after the ravages of the Second World War to help world global health. It's sort of lost its way about 25 years ago. I joined 20 years ago for a couple of years, ran their cancer program, and you could see it's an organization of bureaucrats. The director, for example, isn't even a medically qualified doctor, and it's just not providing value for the world. We pay $6 billion to run it. The US pays $1 billion in contributions. For the last 25 years, governments have been saying, for goodness sake, let's get reform to this organization. Let's get proper experts to work for it. Instead, you just have relatively highly paid paper shufflers, and that's what's gone wrong.
Surely the World Health Organization is the overseeing body for watching for new pandemics, for helping people join existing health programs. Surely we need to contribute to the global health, because health is a global issue. I mean, you're saying it needs reform, but what particularly, where is it going wrong?
I think what this is, it's a sort of poker game of brinkmanship. By threatening to withdraw for one of the biggest funders, the US, the other biggest funder is China. If the big funders withdraw, it will have to reform. It just can't carry on. I mean, you know, it's like a huge public sector monolith enshrouded by the United Nations. Everyone has a diplomatic passport and so on. And, you know, there's a lot of nepotism. It's no surprise that when you go to relatively poor countries, the WHO representative happens to be the brother-in-law of the Minister of Health, for example, because they get to choose who they have, and is paid a Geneva-type salary to live in a country where the average earnings is $10 a day, for example. So there's a lot that has to be done for it. And, you know, successive directors have tried their best. I mean, the one I worked for was super. She'd been the Prime Minister of Norway, and she was just great. But after 2 years, she gave up. Just couldn't take the lack of ability to restructure the organization.
How does this manifest? I mean, you talk in general terms about the fact that it's a huge organization that is not sort of functioning, but what happens? Why is it? What's going wrong?
Well, if we take COVID, that's a great example. You know, the instructions coming from it, governments are looking for help. They wanted to know what to do. The guys at immigration at Heathrow wanted to know what to do. And who better than the Global Health Organization, the WHO, to give that direction? First of all, they didn't issue anything. Then when they were asked to show, keep borders open, don't bother with it all. And then suddenly they panicked and said, oh, we've got to close borders, we've got to have certification, we've got to have vaccine passports and all that sort of thing. It was not based on any science. And then in the aftermath of COVID, when they did the inquiries to the origin of the virus for COVID-19, which clearly came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China, they sent a delegation. They covered up the fact that it could have been a leak from the laboratory. I mean, we're looking for the truth. We're not looking for some judgmental qualities here. We're not blaming anybody. We just need to know the truth to prevent it happening again. And they skewed the results in favor of China. And that's how it's been perceived. And I think that was a big mistake not to come out on top. They should have sorted out COVID. For goodness sake, they sorted out smallpox 50 years ago. The last case of smallpox in Africa was a long time ago, and that was due to WHO help. And there's a big plaque in Geneva triumphing that, as they should be. But
thank you, Dave.
The way that COVID was handled shows the
Thank you so very much, Dave. And we'll stop it there. There are two things that jumped out at me when I was watching this video. And this was one of the statements that the gentleman has just made. He said, it was not based on science. It was not based on science. We've been saying this since the beginning of the pandemic. It was not based on science. None of the approaches to the remedies and fixing of this matter was based on science. People don't realize the FDA is not an organization that tests anything that the pharmaceutical drug industries do. They simply look at the facilities. If the facility is A-OK, blah, 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 everything is fine and dandy. But they do not do their own tests on the product that the pharmaceutical industries are producing to see if they meet particular standards. They look at the standards of the facility and so forth to make sure that is all done. I recently saw as well an article and a video where they were actually hiding, these pharmaceutical giants hiding the side effects of their drugs, and inevitably a court had to mandate that they reveal the side effects. And when we were saying that some of these side effects, even to this day, are causing multiple deaths around the world, people just dropping dead. We've had situations here in Barbados where people have just dropped dead. My wife and I, we went into a company that was dealing with some shipping, and we were talking with a young lady behind the counter, and she revealed to us that her girlfriend, sorry, her boyfriend, we're keeping it right, okay? Her boyfriend and their child came to the door one day to go out to get something to eat, and he picked up the keys off the table and dropped down dead. That was it. And he was one that had received the treatment. Now, I am going to make a very clear statement here, and I've said this before. And he reinforces this. The World Health Organization is pure politics. Pure politics. Has nothing to do with the health and well-being of any country in this world. And I'm going to strongly advise the Minister of Health and the Ministry of Health and the Chief Health gentleman here responsible for health, Dr. George, I think it is, to let Barbados do their own work concerning their own treatments for what happens in this country, and don't leave that to anybody to implement where Barbados is concerned. That must not and it cannot happen in Barbados. We're not going to allow that. All right, so let's be clear on that matter. As a matter of fact, you know that there's just been a case here in relative to the Prime Minister, her brother, and other things, which I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to make any comments on that at this particular point in time. But clearly, there has been some questioning within that context as well. And I'm simply saying that we are going to have to pay attention to what is happening around us. And we are going to have to require of our leadership that they look after Barbados from a Barbadian perspective. You cannot have a singular treatment that looks after everybody the same way, because every drug has side effects that affect every single person differently. I'm not a doctor, but common sense would tell you that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that fact. Some medications some people take and cruise through. And other people take, I'm talking about some regular medications you can pick up off the pharmaceutical shelf. You know, some of those things like Aramol and those, you know, those different things for coughs and fevers and so on. And you have to watch the different side effects they have. So this is where the World Health Organization compromised itself and has absolutely lost integrity in my mind, period, where my country is concerned. But moving quickly, we also have the matter here in Barbados where we have an escalating issue of safety and security in this country. Now, I asked someone the other day, and you all can tell me if I'm correct or wrong. Yeah, I know exactly what I said, correct or wrong. Okay, isn't a government's number one responsibility to look after the safety of the people of its country? Why then are we having this spate of robberies, holdups, shootings, and it's almost as if everybody's hands are tied to bring a resolution to the matter? It's going to require some very aggressive approaches, and approaches that may cause, and I'm not going to advocate for any state of emergency, because we have leadership that will use states of emergencies as an excuse to shut down people's liberties and freedom of movement. We have that existing potentially in our country at this particular point in time. But something needs to be done, and done aggressively. We've had enough talk. Action needs to be taken. If in the US, ICE can find illegal immigrants because they've had them on their radar, please, are you suggesting to me that the police and the defense, I'm calling it the defense force, and the special task force, or whatever you call them, don't know who are the troublemakers in this country? Don't know who are the people that are creating these elements around our neighborhoods? I don't believe that. All I'm saying is, if ICE in the United States of America can find 10, 20,000 people so fast, then at least in this little 166 square mile, this country is not as big as some farms in the United States. We should be able to address these things. If some of these people, as I am told, I was not there, I was not present, but I was told that some of these guys attended the opening of the new parliament. Why weren't they arrested there? Why wasn't action taken if they knew this? Why wasn't action taken then? And now we are in the predicament where a woman sitting on her front patio enjoying the evening fresh breeze finds somebody walk up to her with a gun to rob her and intimidate her. A government's number one responsibility is to have the best interests and safety of their citizens as their number one priority. And if that is the case, I put it to you that this government has a failing grade when it comes to that. You could do all the other things as brilliantly as you wish. If you fail in this area, you have undermined the integrity, you've undermined the confidence, I should say, of the people of this country. And this is not to be taken as a joke. Why? Because that lady sitting on her front porch could easily have been shot and killed right in her own home. So as a government, you have to take these matters seriously and you have to act quickly so that these matters are allayed and feared. People are afraid in their homes at night. I remember, I don't know, many of you all recall Apostle Lucille Beard saying last week, you know, that she challenged some of the guys in the Gall Hill area, and you know, they didn't know the power that she is. And I can tell you something. I know who looks after me. I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a believer in angels. I'm a believer that they surround my property. And don't try to test it, because if you try to test it, you might lose your life in the process. All right. So every one of us, this is why I take our spiritual component. The national anthem treats to it. The Lord has been the people's guide for past 300 years. With him still on the people's side, we have listened to it. No doubts or fears, with God on our side, because obviously it doesn't seem the government can get this under control, but I know who can. I know who can expose. I know who can bring down. I know who can cause things to happen, and he doesn't need a police officer to do it. He can take breath away as you are driving in a vehicle. So I know, and I hope you do too, because we need to realize that there is only so much a government can do, which they ought to be doing. And then we depend on the Lord, who has been the people's guide for past 300 years. And we have no doubts or fears. Don't try to inject fear into us by doing these things, because God is on the side of the people of this country. That's what our national anthem has enshrined in it. And I dare say there are those who would love to have the national anthem changed, just like they have tried to get the Republic Constitution changed in such a manner just to refer to a supreme being or something of that sort. Listen, I'm not dealing with some ethereal entity. We're dealing with a personality. We're dealing with one who is aware, one who laughs, one who gets upset and angry. Those are characteristics of personalities, not an ethereal entity. All right. So let's just take care of that aspect this evening. Okay. And just there's one other thing I wanted to touch on tonight. I'm just looking back at my notes here, because I made a few of them to make sure I kept on track. I'm waiting for one of my guests to come on, and so just let me check back here and make sure I'm touching everything I really want to touch this evening. We're going to be looking at that central bank report. I found it very intriguing. Just a few minutes ago, I was listening to a YouTube video of the 10 most indebted countries in the Caribbean. And you won't guess which is at number one. But we'll talk about that a little later on. We'll be looking, hopefully, I'll be able to get one of my other guests on later on tonight to look at this matter of drugs. I know we have been dealing with this over the past couple of programs as well. But we have a young man who's been involved at on the ground, so to speak, and he'll be hopefully able to join us in not too far from now. The whole aspect of the water concerns, the ongoing water concerns that we have in Barbados. Now, I know the Barbados Water Authority has done its best to try to allay the fears of Barbadians when it comes to the matter of the dye in the waters, to track the movement of the water, they say, and so on. But you see, when, like the World Health Organization, you have compromised your integrity and trust, it is extremely difficult to rebuild. Anybody, and I say this with respect, anybody who has experienced failure in relationships knows that when that occurs, the most difficult thing to do is rebuild it. And when one looks at how this administration has operated during the pandemic, the reality is that today, Monday, February the 3rd, not a lot of Barbadians have trust in this administration. And it's not just a this administration issue. We're expecting UMAR ABDULLAH to join us again tonight, and he will tell you the same thing exists in Trinidad. And those in Guyana will tell you the same thing exists in Guyana. And if you go to the larger countries, you go to the European Union, you'll find that the same thing exists in the European Union. You'll remember those farmers that protested. I think it was in Spain. You remember what happened in France, in Paris, when they sought to increase the retirement age by 1 year. And there were riots in Paris. But we have a government that comes here, carte blanche, increases it by 3-4 years or whatever, and nobody says anything. You know, so we really need to wake up and understand what is going on. And Mr. Abdullah is going to be coming on later on tonight, and he's going to be sharing with us some of these issues that we are going to be addressing on the show tonight. Now, Dave has put something up for me. I hope you can see what it is. I hope you can read it. I'm going to take this comment down so that you can gather it. But you know, recently, and I think on one of our shows, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Friday, which one, the former minister spoke to this matter in the media, and former minister of government spoke to this matter in the media concerning Vibes Cartel coming to Barbados. And as you can see here, this is a petition that was started and copied to the government of Barbados. And it was a call for positive influence and the renouncement of violence at the Vibes Cartel concert on the 20th of April. And look what day they choose to put this most vulgar artist on display in the country. And you are going to tell me, excuse me, that the people of the government of this country has the people of Barbados in their hearts? I'm sorry. I expect Sandra Husbands, who is a Minister of State, I believe in the Ministry of Education or something there. Sandra, I am calling on you tonight by name as a Christian woman whom we hold in highest regard and respect, to stand up against your Prime Minister and tell them straight, this is egregious to the church, to bring this perverted performer who has been criticized for the vulgarity of lyrics in his music to air this on Easter Sunday. Why Easter Sunday? You couldn't do it on Easter bank holiday. On the Monday, you're going to choose Easter Sunday. That is disrespectful to the church. And we should be hearing the voices of reverends, pastors, apostles, prophets, fathers, priests raised against this concert on one of the holiest days of Christendom, that the entire world, probably apart from Christmas, this is probably the most sacred of days in the Christian calendar. And you're going to have this perverted show. And I am not apologizing for calling it what it is. The article says, as an artist with immense influence, especially among the younger generation, your music plays a significant role in shaping the perspectives and behaviors. And we know that his music has been very vulgar, has some profane lyrics and lewd lyrics and violent lyrics. The request has been made to refrain from performing any songs that contain lewd, profane, and violent lyrics that may encourage criminal behavior. Demonstrate through your performance that you support the movement to create a safer Barbados and stand against crime in all of its forms. We believe that artists, as influential figures, have a responsibility to use their talents for the greater good. And this is an opportunity for you to show the people of Barbados that you stand for peace, unity, and progress. And so we are taking a stand. And I'm calling on the entire church community in this country, the entire church community, the Barbados Christian Council and the Barbados Evangelical Association, to write to the Prime Minister and ask the Prime Minister not to permit this concert, particularly to be performed on Easter Sunday. And you've heard my voice. I'm a minister. I'm a reverend. I'm an ordained minister of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies, Barbados District. You've heard my voice. And I hope that you will hear a lot of other Christian ministers' voices on radio or in the newspaper or on television speaking out against this particular artist and the performance of this artist on Easter Sunday. Find another day to bring him in here. If you want, bring him in for Kadooment, bring him in for Kadooment. But don't bring him in here to perform sacrilegious, lewd, profane, and vulgar lyrical content in music on the most sacred day of the Christian calendar. And I'm calling you out, Madam Prime Minister, and the government of Barbados. And Sandra, I'm calling you out. You know me. I know you. We have been great friends over the years. But I'm saying to you, Sandra, enough is enough. I know there are other members of the government, other members of the cabinet that are strong Christian people. I've always had the respect for the representative from St. Thomas. And I'm calling on you, ma'am, to take a stand and tell them no. Not on Easter Sunday. That is not acceptable. Not acceptable. All right. So let's make sure we get this clear. Thank you, Dave, for running that piece for us. Well, my first guest is in the room, and I want to make sure I give him the full time. He's, we're going to be hot and moving tonight, really quickly. And so, Umar, I want to welcome you to the show tonight. I'm not seeing you there yet. Okay, there you are. Got you upright. There you are. Good evening, sir. What a pleasure.
Some issues here, so hold on a sec.
Yeah, that's fine. But we will just go ahead and welcome you. You can always speak when you get your end there sorted out. But we want to welcome you again. We always look forward to what you share here on this program. I'm deeply encouraged by your call for civil protests. I'm deeply encouraged by this, particularly in our country where we have such a minuscule representation of opposition in Parliament. And so we want to welcome you. I know there are a number of things you want to share with us tonight. As you know, we always free the subject content for you and any of our guests, really, at least on this Monday evening. So welcome, and please go right ahead and share with us tonight what is on your heart.
All right. So greetings, everyone. Greetings to you, Ferdinand, Pastor Ferdinand. I must say thank you for allowing me the opportunity and the privilege to be on this program. This program is such an important program, especially because of the fact that we deal with the real issues that mainstream media don't ever want to touch. And we have found a way to touch on these issues without getting ourselves into any trouble and so on. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
So, good night to all your viewers, all your listeners, wherever they're from. You know, I can only wish one thing for you all, and that is peace and prosperity. And it's
Thank you, sir.
important that we, ask for that for fellow men or fellow countrymen, people from all over the globe. We're seeing the number of suffering and lives lost and tragic
Yes.
incidents, across our waters. And in particular, I want to deal with one such tragic incident. I mean, there's so many that's taking place all over the world, and one may say, well, why don't talk about those other incidents as well? But we have to be very specific when we are treating with issues, because if I or we see that there is some element of threat coming from a particular group or particular entity or from somewhere, and we can raise an alarm and warn people about this, warn people to look carefully at what is happening, pay attention, be vigilant. I think we would be able to save ourselves a whole lot of problems and a whole lot of trouble going into the future. All right. So recently we would have, woken up to the tragic news of the airplane crash in America and the Black
Yes.
Hawk, that incident with the Black Hawk and the airplane. What is troubling about this incident is that there's so many reports coming out from mainstream media, and they all seem to be talking one particular narrative, and there isn't much insightful investigation into this tragic incident. Just 2 days ago there was another what people believe to be another crash of another airline. And looking at the video of that particular crash, we saw it's like, I mean, you see planes falling out of the sky, planes crashing into the earth, but not at that speed. It's as if somebody would have taken that plane and throw it towards the earth. And just today I was talking to one of my colleagues, and they were pointing out to me there is some reason to believe that that was not an aircraft. It was actually a missile that was fired, at that location. I asked the question after, well, what is in that location? Why would they need to fire a missile in that location? We're hearing reports that 6 persons have died as a result of that crash or that incident. How did those persons die if it was not an airplane? Was those persons impacted by the explosion of that missile, if it was indeed a missile? We are not too certain about it as yet, but we are paying very, very close attention to it. But I want to bring something to perspective here. And we would have issued, the First Wave Movement would have issued a call for a full investigation into possible motives behind the American Airlines and the Black Hawk crash. And that was before this incident took place with this other aircraft or this other missile, however you want to you classify it or categorize it. And we would have called for this investigation because we believe that there is a particular side of this investigation that people are not looking at. Now, if you all could remember, Donald Trump recently, when he got into office, he immediately, even before he got into office, this was one of his promises. America would only recognize 2 genders, male and female. All right? And then there was also the promise that he was going to roll back a policy, a hiring practice policy within the FAA, which we know as the flight controllers. And that DEI policy um, was put in place by I think Trump would have removed it when he was in power the last time, and then when Biden came into power, they reinstated it, and then Trump made a promise, and he did fulfill his promise. He signed a presidential order that particular policy be repealed. Now, that policy, which the acronym is diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Inclusion. All right. Now, what we understand, and I'm saying this, and I want you all to remember some of these points I'm making, because when I get into the meat of the matter, and I want to do this very quickly because of time and so on, the LGBT community would have had a lot of influence in the framing of this DEI policy. And the reason because obviously they wanted to see themselves as honorable candidates for positions within the FAA as flight controllers and so on and so forth. With the rollback of this policy, not just the promise of Trump recognizing only two genders in America, but the rollback of the DEI policy will also infringe on these persons, people who consider themselves gays, bisexual, trans, and so on. They're going to see themselves greatly affected by this rollback. All right? So no longer, if a man, identifies himself as a woman and he works as in that division or in that department, it's going to be very difficult for him to continue his job there because of this, the rolling back of this policy and the recognition of just two genders in America. Now, I'm going to just stop there for a bit, and I want to go back. I want to go back to an article that the First Wave Movement would have published in 5th of June, 2023. And this was on the heels of the incident that took place at the Target stores in America. If you all could remember, just refresh your memory a bit. There were certain items being sold at this store in America, this chain of stores, the Target stores, and there was an outcry, right, by the citizens against Target selling these items.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
and
remember
Target
that.
would have removed the items from their shelves, and subsequently there were some bomb threats and there were some aggression coming from this minority group in America. And just to fast track a bit, I just want to go through some of the narrative that was being pushed by this particular group. And one particular person who considered himself a female, would have been at the core, at the center of this type of rhetoric. So we know at different organizations and so on, companies, you go into those companies, you see they have those teacups with the company name and the logo and their, certain statements that the company would stand by, etc., etc. And in most businesses and companies and organizations worldwide, we see this. They print their jerseys, they have their logos, their taglines, etc., etc., to spread their word, to spread their message, what it is they want people to understand, all right, about their organization. So this particular group of people, caring about their business, influencing policy, influencing whatever they're trying to influence in America. And we do understand and we know that they have a great amount of influence throughout the world, all right? They have a lot of wealth. They have a lot of backings from wealthy people. A lot of the entertainers, they're in bed with this group. Politicians as well. Politicians, we see a lot of that happening. No time in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a gay pride parade without the American embassy, giving public support to this gay pride group, right? And when I mean public support, their logos on their banners, on their advertising campaigns, etc., etc. And this was during the Biden administration, right? So no longer are we going to see the American embassy's logo on a gay pride, campaign banner. No longer are we going to see that under the Trump administration, right? So we have to take these things and understand where I'm getting at. So what I'm getting at. So one of the items being sold or being marketed by this particular group has it's actually a pin that you wear on your shirt or your dress, whatever, with two axes. And this is an axe that you use to cut down a tree, cut wood, and so on and so forth. And it reads, listen what it reads: fight for trans rights, right? This is a serious group, and they are big on rights for the LGBTQ, gays. We have trans people who consider themselves, who are born in one particular gender, and they identify themselves as the opposite gender, etc., etc. Fight for trans rights. There's also a design with a guillotine, and I want you all to understand the gravity of what it is I'm speaking about here. A guillotine with skulls near it that reads homophobic headrest, right? So all those persons who are against the ideology, all right, this is a symbol that indicates what they think about you, homophobic, right? And they're saying this is a homophobic headrest, a guillotine with skulls next to it. Now you can well imagine if a Christian group or a Muslim group, were to have these kind of paraphernalia in and around their headquarters and so on and so forth, and the FBI or the CIA or the police gets wind of these things, you can imagine the type of investigation that will go into these groups. But there has been nothing with respect to this happening here. We back.
Yeah, Umar, just sorry to interrupt you, but I see a comment made. I don't know if you can see it on the screen right now.
I won't be able to see my screen is too small.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what it says in the context of the woke perspective you're speaking about, and the issues of the aircraft disasters that we had over the weekend, over the last week. It says here, just to note, the Black Hawk female pilot was a biological male, trans, and it appeared deliberate, perhaps suicide. And also the Russian figure skater gold medalist was on board that plane. What would you say to the comment? Because I haven't seen anything.
Well, actually, I was going to make mention of that later on. So
okay.
It was a kind of preempted thing.
Okay, no, go ahead. Yeah. Because you were talking about these guillotines and so on, and I was just wondering from when I saw the comment.
So I'm moving on, and I just want to go through these things very quickly. We bash back gay bashing, lesbian bashing, trans bashing, queer bashing, right? And this is a quote from Irk Carnell, who is the head of this group, right, that has been pushing back against the rhetoric that has been speaking out against the actions and the practices of his life, this particular lifestyle. So he's saying we bash back. What do you mean by we bash back? What do you mean by that? I mean, how is this bashing back violence in nature? Is it are we to think that there's some sort of terrorism undertone here? All right. What exactly do you mean by bashback? All right. And when Trump made it absolutely clear that he would only recognize two genders in America, male and female, and went ahead and rolled back the DEI policy that was placed there by Biden, who is a trophy supporter of the LGBTQ, right? He's saying this is the largest, most powerful pushing back at the LGBTQ community, all right? And he's saying we bash back gay bashing, lesbian bashing. Trump would have done all of that in just that one policy change. One design has a little lighter, with the words "burn down the system." Burn down the system. We're hearing about crashes now, plane crashes, all right, which is directly linked to the FAA, all right, and the one would say the policy rollback and so on and so forth. What is actually influencing what is happening here? The system is what keeps trans kids, right? This is what he's saying. Colonel again. The system is what keeps trans kids from feeling free. We need to burn it down and start up again a system that doesn't police gender and expression. So they need to burn it down and restart a system that doesn't police gender and expression. Trump is the biggest police in this regard because he has clearly stated his position, and America is now going to recognize just two genders. A world that allows exploration, changing our minds, dressing how we want. All right, so that's the world that they want. We need to burn down the system and create a world where trans people don't get to just live but strive. These are sayings. These are words coming out of this man's mouth. They treat binary people like they don't exist. It's the reason trans women face both misogyny and transphobia in equal measure. It's becoming a system where trans men are erased and overlooked. Another design feature, a snake biting the hand of a human, and the caption reads, "Never trust a TIRF." Now a TIRF, T-E-R-F, it's the acronym for, let me just get it here. Right, it's the acronym for, hold on a sec. Right, it's the acronym for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminism, right? It's a branch of the feminist movement, or Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist, right? Now, this is a person, it's an advocate for radical feminism who believes that a trans woman's gender identity is not legitimate. So this is a group of the women's lib movement that believes that these women, the trans women's gender identity is not legitimate, and who is hostile, they are hostile to the inclusion of trans people and gender diverse people into the feminist movement. All right. So he's saying here, right? He's making mention of them here in this thing. Right? Never trust the TIRF, right? Never trust these people. When referring to TIRF, he said that they don't care about women's rights. They don't have the right intentions, and avoid them when you can and bite them when you can't. Right? This is rhetoric that's coming out from a human, a human being. Right? Somebody who represents an organization, represents a number of, different people, race, color, and so on, but they have one particular ideology. Why are these people not being investigated? Why are they being allowed to strive, as he's saying in his wordings? Carnell claims the word groomer, right? We know about grooming is a crime. We know that is a right-wing transphobic word, right? Other slogans: "Join my gay cult, transitioning saves lives," and all these things. So what we are saying is that at the backdrop of all these statements that was made back in long before 2023, but we wrote this article in 2023 highlighting this particular group of people. And what we were saying is that it is crucial to address this because this is possibly the rise of a new kind of terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying it here tonight, and I want people to understand that this new kind of terrorism, it is not pegged against what we understand terrorism to be, right? Because terrorism is making a statement, a political statement. Usually these statements will come from well-organized and structured, grounded groups within our society, religious groups, political groups, right, etc., etc. This particular group of they have no values. They're not grounded in anything. So this type of terrorism, if it is allowed to exist and foster, we're going to have some real problems on our hands.
Yes, absolutely. If
And
it's allowed.
like, if it's allowed. So what we are saying is that on the heels of these announcements by Trump, President Trump, we had this crash. Now, everybody out there understands a Black Hawk helicopter. It's a helicopter, piece of machinery, piece of equipment that is specifically built for war. This is not no ordinary helicopter. This is no ordinary vehicle. And the persons who are given the opportunity to steer these vehicles, these machinery, is highly trained, right? Now this area where this crash took place, there's a lot of traffic, air traffic in this particular area. And as we would have seen in many reports, that particular area, are you still there? Are you hearing me still? Pastor Ferdinand?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm here.
All right. Right. So the military aircrafts are only authorized to fly at a certain height. It's 200 feet in the air, the highest that they can go. Go beyond that, they risk colliding with incoming aircraft taking off, etc., etc. There was one particular report, and I'm bringing all this perspective on the table because I want people to understand that we are not. This is not an effort by us to, lay blame on anybody. We're calling on an investigation, and we want to see the investigation go in this direction as well. We want to hear talking about it.
One of the things, Omar, that I have just pulled up. You remember that question, that comment that I alluded to just now that someone had posted with regards to the transgenderism. And there is a report that is actually disinformation. I just want to read that report. It says here the Black Hawk crash ushered in a wave of disinformation from social media focusing on diversity, inclusion, and equity, or DEI. The Trump administration has pledged to wipe out diversity across the government. There were claims the female pilot was a transgender pilot from the Virginia National Guard named Joe Ellis. Ellis has posted a proof of life video on Facebook denouncing the rumors and offering condolences to those killed in the crash. So clearly it would appear that Ellis was not on board either, because if she could post an article on Facebook denouncing the rumors and offering condolences to those who were killed in the crash, it would mean that she was not in the helicopter itself. I'm also reading a couple of things on as you're talking on our comments. And there was one here about marginalizing civil rights with Black this month, Black History Month, and putting sexual minorities on the back burner. I'm not paying attention to the comment made regarding the President of the United States, but I will say that I have observed, Umar, a real effort, and I'm going to be quick because I know Rose is waiting in the wing to join us right now. But I have observed that there is a divisive element loose in America that is unfortunately making its way across the world and making its way even into our Caribbean area. And this is this divisiveness of the very thing that conservatives, if you want to call them, that are accused of, and that is racism, where they are now measuring everything on the basis of color or gender or something of that nature. We just watched the DNC attempting to elect a new leader for the DNC. And you can see it on full display there, where anybody who stands up against you, you're either misogynist or racist. And I'm not going to be involved in that crap. If I don't agree with you, I don't agree with you. And you're not going to change that position with me by calling me racist or misogynistic or whatever it is they care to call it. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. That is a problem in my mind where this aspect of DEI, and I have to do quite a bit of research on it, but this aspect of the DEI, and you know, I am concerned. I am concerned where we seem to think that people are entitled to something because of their gender, their race, or anything of the sort. I just saw a video on YouTube with a woman castigating the Immigration Department of the United States of America because she was a Canadian and she was stopped and questioned and taken aside. Umar, I just came back from Washington, D.C. as a black man, as a Barbadian, and I and two of my colleagues who accompanied me were taken aside as a part of the. It happens here in Barbados. If you talk to immigration officers here in Barbados from time to time, based on body language or whatever it is they look for, they will take you aside and they will look into it. She seemed to think that she was somehow, because she had a Canadian passport, that meant that they could not question her anything of the sort.
Yeah.
You get this privileged mentality, and I'm not subscribing to any of that. I agree there are two genders, and I have been places where I have heard ludicrous comments made by a doctor concerning chromosomes. Ludicrous. Now, we are not saying that there are not anomalies that do occur. We recognize that happens, and I won't get into the rationale for that, but it does happen. Sometimes it can be as a result of incest.
I could host an entire program and explain that whole
right. So you mean it can come out of things like incest and all that kind of stuff. We get it. We get it. But these ongoing what should I say, war that they're trying to engage across the world, of again, we have come so far, Umar. I mean, you are a Muslim, you're Trinidadian. I have spent years in Trinidad. I have seen Indians married to Negroes. I've seen Muslims married to Christians. I go to the States. I see black men married to white women, white men married to black women. I see them walking hand in hand. Does racism still occur? Of course it does. It has not been completely eliminated. But from the days of Martin Luther King, we have traveled a long, long way. And why can I say that? We just had a black president of the United States. The Postmaster General of the United States of America was a black man. We had secretaries of state that were black people.
Yeah.
So if racism is alive and well, how did that happen? That's an anomaly. So I don't subscribe to that rubbish. And I'm gonna to pull you in really quickly because Rose is there, like I said, chomping at the bit to get on. But I want to say that we do want to offer condolences, and I'm glad you brought the matter of the plane crash up. And even though we don't know who they are, and they're not Barbadians or Trinidadians or from the CARICOM region, I think it becoming of us to offer condolences to the families, not
And
only of the
and let me say,
helicopter,
and let
but
me say
of
that's
the
very,
families of the people who were on the American Airlines flight. You
yeah.
know,
And let me say that's very, very concerning to us. It's very, very concerning to us, and hence the reason why we want a full investigation. And you know, just to cap it off, I want to make something absolutely clear here tonight. That what you said, that that information was misinformation and so on and so forth. We had that, and we went through that process during COVID. All right. And we were told all that we were saying, all that we were talking about was misinformation. All right. And was mischief making and all of the above. Today we are saying what we were talking about and what we were saying was the absolute truth. All right. So these, you know, these pieces that's coming out and saying this and that, I'm taking these things with a pinch of salt. All right. And I'm not going to believe anything that they're saying. But we want an investigation, and we're calling for an investigation, a forensic, an independent review of all passengers, crew members, and individuals linked to the American Airlines and helicopter crash, an examination of digital and financial footprints to uncover whether the LGBTQ organizations, activists, and corporate sponsors played any role in these events, a review of government responses and media narratives to assess whether there is a coordinated effort to shift public discourse in favor of the LGBTQ agenda, and protection for individuals and organizations that have been outspoken against the LGBTQ movement, as they may now be targeted more aggressively. All right. And one may ask, and very quickly, I want to give Rose her time, but very quickly, people would want to ask the question, well, what are the motives? What are the motives? What are the benefits for the LGBTQ movement if something like this, for something like this? And I just want to list it very quickly. Number one, eliminating opposition. If any victim of these crashes were known to oppose the LGBTQ agenda, it raises question about whether these events were orchestrated as a warning or a method of silencing critics. Number two, instilling fear. Such incidents could serve as psychological warfare, instilling fear in public figures, activists, and religious leaders who speak against the LGBTQ agenda, discouraging them from further opposition. Number three, political leverage. Tragedies create emotional responses. If LGBTQ groups can manipulate public sentiment, they can push for stronger laws against so-called hate speech, even if it simply means expressing religious or traditional views. And number four, distraction from broader agendas. These incidents could be used to divert attention away from other major political and economic moves being orchestrated globally, allowing laws and policies favoring the LGBTQ activism to pass unnoticed. And number five, which is the last one, framing opponents. If an opponent of the LGBTQ ideology is blamed for these incidents, it could provide justification for further crackdowns on religious and conservative movements, leading to increased censorship and oppression. All right. So basically, I just wanted to put that on the table. All right. In case people are wondering, in case people are asking, we are doing our homework and we are looking at the trend and we are asking for full investigation in this matter and do not leave any stone unturned. And I think this is important for us because we noticed what happened with the Target situation, Target stores. And going forward, we've seen certain rhetoric, certain statements being made, and look what is happening now. So are we correct or are we wrong? We need to be told that. Frankly, we need to be told that. And we're asking the investigators to clear the air of this.
Thank you so much, Umar. You know, you raised some very valid points, I think, in what you're sharing with us. And I'm watching some comments here in the chat because there was a Russian, I think, skater on board, and I understand from what I see there that Russia also wants an investigation into the crash. I guess they have that right because one of their citizens was on board the
Yep.
aircraft. I have seen quite a lot of information to do with the Black Hawk helicopter, the capability of it being flown remotely. I've seen the information to do with its trajectory, with the fact that I've watched experts speak about the pilots that would be using night vision, and the glaring lights from a commercial aircraft would make it impossible to have not been seen.
Yeah.
The fact that the aircraft was somewhere around 300, 400, 350 feet, and as you mentioned, particularly around commercial airspaces, the military helicopters are held to a 200-foot roof limit. All of this I have seen mentioned. One then is left to ask the question, what was it doing at that height? There is a lot of speculation that can exist at times like these, and I believe let me make sure I get it right, a transparent investigation. And
Yeah.
I'm not emphasizing investigation. I'm emphasizing the word transparent,
Yeah.
because what we have observed in terms of governments in the last 3 years is that governments around the world have not been transparent. And that is why people have lost trust in significant agencies that could at one time be counted upon to be reliable and to be agencies of integrity. Now I'm going to bring in Rose. I know I was looking for you, Rose, just now. I couldn't see your lovely face and your headphones. I couldn't see them, so I was kind of waiting to see you appear. So I thank you for appearing, and we want to bring you in. I'm sure you've been listening to the show behind the scenes, hearing where we are at and what is happening. And I want to thank you for being with us again tonight. Of course, it's a pleasure for you to join us here on the Marcia Week Show.
Thank you, Reverend Ferdinand, and good evening to you, UMAR.
Good
And
evening to you, Rose.
yes, I look forward to our CARICOM tete-a-tete
Yeah.
on Monday evenings. And that
So,
will be the focus of my presentation. Pardon my throat. I was backstage from about 20 past 7, so I was here listening to the engagement and the passion and the information with which the information was provided. That should cause us concern. It is scary. We don't know what will happen next, when it will happen, how it will happen, by whom. But we need to keep the faith. And I want to greet those who are online, as I usually do. Good evening, loyal sons and daughters, all firm craftsmen of our faith. And I am delighted to be with you. And I'm going to jump straight into my presentation, which I feel the need to wrap up and let our people know what's happening to us through CARICOM, through our leaders. And I'm wondering if there's any recourse, what do we do as civil society? Matters that concern the three of us here, we have spoken so often on the involvement and the power of civil society. I want to lend my voice to the condolences and prayers to the Barbados Police Service, the colleagues, family, and friends,
Yes.
and persons like myself who didn't know the good gentleman personally,
Yes. Thank
Inspector
you.
Rodney Ennis. But
Yes.
it was so reassuring when I saw him speaking to the public. It was so reassuring. And I'm hearing that was the manner in which he conducted himself off camera when interacting with others. We pray that the support he would have given in such circumstances that his family and his colleagues will receive. I
Rose,
could,
Rose, if I could just interject quickly, just this evening, my daughter shared with me that he had just been last week at the
yeah,
Hilton, having, planning conversations and so on for an event there, I believe. And it just seemed to have been such a shocker. So I do thank you and appreciate you for conveying our condolences and our feelings toward the family on the behalf of all of us here at the Marcy Lee
yes,
Show. So thank you so
yes.
very much.
Barbados cries, not just mourn, we cry. And I'm very
Yes.
concerned about the intervention that his colleagues will receive. It is not easy going to bloody scenes, seeing death that could have been avoided, and to report to the public with such measured decorum and
Mhm.
sensitivity. I could
Yes.
also speak about the falling school population in the north. You're aware of that? That the school attendance rolls have dropped significantly, and there's one school that I think the press reported as having only 25 or so students. Should that be allowed? I'll speak
Mhm.
to that another time. Um, but where is the Minister of Education who should be speaking on that matter? It was left to the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw, to speak to the matter, and is he the new Chief Education Officer or Minister of Education, none other than Mr. Roy Morris. He had much to say about what the causative factors for the falling school attendance in the North, and he spoke under a new position. Are you aware of his new position?
No, I am
He's the
not.
Director of Citizens Engagement in the Prime Minister's office.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Director of Citizens Engagement in the Prime Minister's office. And he said very assuredly that there will be a meeting coming together in St. Lucie under that I don't know, some gathering. I can't keep up with the various forum gathering, but he will be addressing that. Now I know why at all those town hall meetings across the country, I would hear the Prime Minister say, Mr. Morris, take a note. Go to Mr. Morris and give him your information. We have another MP, and his designation is the Director of Citizens Engagement. So I could also speak to has an audit been done on regathering in St. Lucie? What did it cost? What are the measurables? The success of regathering with a cost affixed, rather than the excitable narrative and rhetoric which continued, and we heard it on CBC last night, the recording of the Minister Kerry Simmons, what's the word, justifying regathering and its activities. So we could speak about that, but I speak to those in passing. But I am, Pastor Ferdy did not send you my usual PowerPoints. I printed them because there would be quite a few. So I'm going to race through very quickly. Remember last week, I spoke to ourselves on the crime and violence at CARICOM level, and I spoke on the declarations that were made, by the CARICOM ministers on crime and public safety. And we spoke to that declaration, and you read it so well for us, Pastor Ferdinand. That declaration that had its beginnings in Port of Spain, where our brother UMAR resides. And out of that meeting, I'm going to pick up from there. I'm not going back there. I'm going to pick up a communique was of March 2024, was released on the 46th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads Government of CARICOM. And that was held on the 26th and the 28th of February. And the statement said, following from CARICOM, following the inaugural Symposium of Crime and Violence as a public health safety issue, and the declaration of the heads of government in Trinidad and Tobago on the 17th to 18th April 2023. CARICOM heads of government met in caucus in Georgetown, Guyana on the 27th of February to discuss the prevailing dire state of crime, violence, and public safety among its member states. So nothing was done on those mouthy-mealy, that's all I could call it, mouthy-mealy declarations coming out of Trinidad in April 2023. Heads of government, this is a communique from CARICOM. Heads of government reiterated their firm commitment to the principles stated in and to the implementation of the actions set out in the Declaration on Crime and Violence as a public health safety issue. Now listen to this. In reaffirming the right to freedom of expression and to public speech, CARICOM heads of government strongly condemned the development, presence, tolerance, or acceptance of violent, antisocial music and social media content that denigrate women and encourage or promote or support the use of violence, guns, and other antisocial behavior, particularly targeted to our youth. That statement was released after the caucus on February 2024. And what is happening on Easter Sunday? We have the concern about antisocial music, violent music that denigrate women and encourage or promote or support the use of violence, guns, and other antisocial behavior, particularly targeted to our youth. This is what came out from that. Now, from that same meeting, I wouldn't go through that. You can read it. And it ended by saying, CARICOM heads of government remain committed to maintaining this region as a zone of domestic peace and safety to ensure the preservation of our CARICOM, Caribbean civilization. That came from that. Then By the way, our Prime Minister is giving a lecture on Bob Marley, um, this week. He celebrates, I think, his 80th birthday on the 6th, and should be in Jamaica speaking. I don't know if it's by Zoom, but she has been invited to speak. No doubt we'll be hearing things like one, love, and unity, because that is the theme that was sent out in the PR statement. Now, CARICOM, in identifying strategic solutions to tackle crime and violence, is a priority for CARICOM, according to the CARICOM Deputy Secretary General in a statement made in 2024. Dr. Armstrong Alexis, the Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM, during his address at the 47th meeting of the Council of Human and Social Development Health on Friday, 27th of September in Washington, 2025, expressed that CARICOM heads of government are prioritizing the safety and security of the region and working collaboratively to address the social determinants that contribute to many social ills, including crime and violence that adversely impact public health, families, communities, and individuals. That is what we've been saying. What's new? What's new? And he continues, the statement out of CARICOM reads, CARICOM heads of government expressed deep concern about the high levels of crime and violence in the region. Listen to this one, Pastor Ferdy. Driven in part by firearms and ammunition trafficking, transnational criminal networks, and a breakdown of social structures and the impact of crime and violence of young people and children. He also lauded the offer by Barbados to hold a second regional symposium on crime and security as a public health issue before the end of 2024. And that was hosted in Georgetown. And it was out of that the Prime Minister made the informed boo-boo that crime and violence is a social disease. Now, this is the situation that exists. And my question is, what has CARICOM been doing? The taxpayers' money from the various governments that are members of CARICOM, we all have been experiencing, some more than others, extreme situations of crime and violence. And we cannot abide with just nice declarations and pronouncements, both by the CARICOM public servants as well as our heads of government. What are we going to do, Barbados? There is going to be a CARICOM heads of government meeting. I did some research here. CARICOM heads of government meeting, the 48th regular meeting on the 19th to the 21st of February 2025. This brings us to civil society and the need for civil society's participation. And I will quickly give a historical overview? Very quickly. Pastor Ferdy, what's my time like?
You're doing pretty okay.
All right.
I went into a bit of your time, and I've just messaged KEMAR to ask him to give me a little grace period with you because he was scheduled to come on a few minutes ago, but I'm just waiting for a response from him. But you go right ahead.
Yes, please. Civil society, as you always say, I always say, Umar always say, the three of us particularly, we always browbeat civil society and say, be active, become engaged. You have power. And I am going to share with you a statement that came out of the mouth of Chantel Monroe Knight when she was executive director of CPDC. Now, let me trace the history of CPDC, the Caribbean Policy Development Center. CPDC was formed in 1991. I was part of that early discussion led by persons such as Joan French from Trinidad, from Jamaica, Beryl Carrasco from St. Lucia, Norma Shorey Bryan from Barbados, the late Dr. Pat Ellis, and we would share spaces at the headquarters of the Caribbean Regional Council for Adult Education, where I was the regional program coordinator. Or we would go over to CCC, the Caribbean Council of Churches, where Pat and I think Norma was there. Norma was at Women and Development extramural, and where Beryl Carrasco and Joan French worked. And the Caribbean Development Policy Center was formed out of that engagement in 1991. It had its being, and it continues to be, a nonprofit organization focused on sensitizing NGOs and the public on key policy issues affecting the Caribbean region. It was commissioned by the Caribbean Council of Churches and a network of development NGOs with the task of ensuring that the social dislocation caused by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank policies receive a fitting, collaborative, inclusive, and representative people-centered development policy, advocacy, and lobbying response. Now, in 1997, 6 years after its formation and mobilizing NGOs through the region in the throes and experiences of the IMF coming to their countries, in 1997, the CPDC spearheaded a charter of civil society, which exists. It was adopted and signed by the Caribbean heads of government on Wednesday, February 19, 1997, in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda. And it had over 29 articles. It comprises, 27 articles. It's still somewhere at CARICOM. And amongst other rights that were identified by CPDC and its member organizations, it looked at several articles about religion, culture, indigenous people, women, rights, disabled, rights of the disabled, children, access to education training, family rights, and good governance. And there I would advise those who are listening to do research on the Charter of Civil Society. And Article 7 spoke about meetings, demonstrations, and petitions. And we remember how we were not when we looked at the cybercrime bill. A charter as an NGO, as a movement within civil society. And it went on to say meetings, Article 7, meetings, demonstration, and petitions, that every person shall have the right to assemble, to demonstrate peacefully, and to draw up and present petitions, etc. Article number 8 talked about freedom of expression and access to information. And it lends for interesting reading and analysis as we again look at that cybercrime bill. Then good governance. And I am going to share the good governance here. The states shall adopt, the member states shall adopt and implement all appropriate measures to ensure good governance, which is just, open, and accountable. The states recognize and affirm that the rule of law, the effective administration of justice, and the maintenance of the independence and impartiality of the judiciary are essential to good governance. I know you and UMAR like to talk about good governance. The states recognizing the integral to the concept of good governance are the complementary roles of government, the social partners, and the citizenry, shall ensure that the rights and responsibilities of all are clearly established and that the appropriate environment for their exercise and discharge, as the case may be, is fostered. It went on to talk about holders of public office and all those who exercise power that which affects or may affect the public interest shall order their affairs in accordance with national law, that such ordering gives no cause for conflict to arise or to appear to arise between their private interests and their duties to the public, or to otherwise compromise their integrity. And it goes on. It makes for good reading, reflection, and analysis. And although that charter was adopted and signed in 1997, it reads as if it were current today, with a few adjustments. This is the Charter for Civil Society, and that is, I pulled out freedom of expression and access to information. I also look at good governance, and I also look at meetings, demonstrations, and petitions. And I would just wrap up here. In 2023, the CARICOM Secretary General, Dr. Carla Bennett, hosted the first in a series of discussions with the leadership of regional civil society stakeholders, talking about CARICOM Secretariat moves to improve civil society engagement. I don't know if I've been sleeping. I don't know if I missed something, but my question remains, still there is no CARICOM civil society desk. And all these declarations are a formality. All these meetings are a formality to using the taxes of the various government to make declarations and do nothing, while every day we shudder. While every day we shudder and we get nervous. What will we hear? Another one? We have become like, I don't know, while they make declarations. And so there is going to be another meeting coming up here on the Heads of Government 48th regular meeting on the 19th to the 21st, 1st of February. Could it be that we can mobilize and stand at the venue and petition the heads of government on where they stand on crime of violence, given those declarations, beginning with Trinidad, then here in Guyana, and now they are moving to, and I believe there will be another declaration, while we have to deal with the lewd lyrics, which they said in their communique that they will not tolerate artists or lyrics or activities that denigrate women, that are lewd, and that would have negative influence on our young people with regard to gun violence and drugs. So I want to let you know too that in 1997, I believe, I didn't have time, but I believe Chris Sinkler was the executive director of CPDC, and he was robust. He was robust. Hence, I'm surprised at the role he has taken on with this administration. Chantal Monroe Knight was the executive director of CPDC up, I think, until 2016, when she demitted that post. But the voice that was crying out for civil society participation, now in bed with those, are silenced by those who scoff at civil society rising up and saying, look, we're not satisfied. Remember the debate in the upper house from the said lady on everything that came up to the upper house, the Senate. And there was nary, there was no pushback, no representation of the very civil society that made her resume look good, travel all over the world, speaking on civil society and its participation in Barbados. Now, even in the Prime Minister's office, where one would think that she would push and be a voice to engage civil society, we are looking at Rodney Morris, what he's called director of
Rodney or Roy?
Roy Morris,
Roy.
I'm sorry. Roy Morris.
You
Roy
wait.
Morris.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, Rose. You're talking about the Reverend?
No, not the Reverend
Oh,
Roy.
oh, oh,
Roy
oh,
Morris was
Roy,
the
that was with the
journalist.
Barbados. He was with the Barbados today.
Yes, he is now
Yes, yes.
given that position of director of people's engagement. And
People's
when
or citizenship engagement.
there has not been people's engagement at the various town hall meetings, and may got to start all over again. And you have to have a people's engagement to address the falling school attendance rates in St. Lucie, when a meeting of the Minister of Education, Honorable KEMAR, who was perceived as being the best to replace John King, to come and speak to the people. What has the top? I would like an audit on those schools and the staff that was retained, and what they did, and the money spent in salary and maintenance of those plants. But yet we have to wait when there is that engagement with the public, to hear from the public why you are not sending your child to these northern schools and what can be done. More money, ching-a-ling-ling. I like money. That is
Well,
what we were told. So I'm pulling up here to tell you that nothing, as far as my research shows, has shown the enactment of those declarations. The situation remains the same in Barbados and getting worse in Trinidad and around the region. And we are encouraging our youth and older persons to support that artist. And on the most sacred in Trinidad, UMAR, you remember I did the poem on the splintered, when the bumbala after the height
yes.
of carnival, everything went back to normal on that day, as they entered, that last night, as they entered the sacred season of Easter. And you may not be a practicing Christian, but I don't believe in Trinidad that fetting and carnival, you will have to tell me, Omar, fetting and carnival continue unleashed during that sacred season. So,
well, Rose,
I thank you. I am proud in civil society. How will you get the attention?
how will they respond?
This is serious.
Yes,
How will
yes,
we get
yes,
the attention of these
yes.
heads of government who are meeting here come February, just around the corner from us? And so may I ask them just to show Chantal Monroe, is she saying the same thing when she made a passionate plea to resuscitate civil society, but now they want to quell and quench us when we engage in educating, motivating, informing the public about their rights as participants who went to vote, especially in Barbados, unanimously twice.
I gotta move on the Rose.
Governance in that charter.
Yeah, I gotta move on. I got KEMAR coming in just a moment, but just let me say this to you very quickly. One of the things that we've learned about politicians down through the years is that they talk a lot. They talk a lot, and they don't have a lot of action. I remember 2018. one of the primary areas that was spoken to had to do with our roadways, right? I've driven Barbados just today, and I can tell you, I've driven Barbados as if I was on a roller coaster. The only thing is the roller coaster is moving left to right and not up and down, just to avoid potholes. We are used to, and Umar, I undoubtedly believe your experience would be the same in Trinidad, but we are used to politicians talk, 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 and don't do anything. Because as I look at the presentation, incidentally, Rose, that you sent last week Monday, I am reading a paragraph in which the CARICOM head strongly condemned the development, presence, tolerance, or acceptance of violent, antisocial music and social media content that denigrate women and encourage or promote or support the use of violence, guns, and other antisocial behavior, particularly targeted to our youth. And then you go and bring in one of the leading artists to the country to perform who fits exactly that description. Umar.
Well, and you know, I've always advocated that music, this type of derogatory type of music, has a lot to do with our our um, our height of crime within the region, in particularly in Trinidad. And I can tell you how music influences the young minds, the young people. And we've had some issues recently with the Ministry of Education in promoting certain artists in some of their campaigns. And these artists will come in and they would sing these type of lyrics that is counterproductive, has nothing to do with good moral values, and obviously goes against our moral standards in Trinidad and Tobago, and have the girls and the young boys singing along to these tunes and encouraging them to participate. Now, you know, what Rose is saying is quite very, very familiar to what it is we're experiencing here. And this meeting that's supposed to come off in February, it is going to be in the height of the carnival celebrations here in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, it worries me that these events, such as that particular meeting, is being held in the height of you know, the partying and the revelry and so on, so that people would not be paying attention to these things. Nobody is paying attention to policy and policy making and so on while they're partying and fretting and so on. It's all about that. And these governments or these actors in the region are going to get away again with stripping away or stripping us of our rights, our dignity, our sovereignty, and what is left of our democracy. And you know, we oftentimes would wake up and we'd ask the question. Oftentimes, people would say, "Well, where's our sovereignty gone? Where's our democracy gone?" Well, while you were partying and while you were hanging out in the fetes, it was being taken away from you. It was being stolen away from you, and obviously, for obvious reasons, you were not aware. So, I mean, it's sad. And Rose, we need to continue talking about these things. We need to continue to raise these issues, and we need to get the people to understand that, you know, politics and the good governance. All right, politics and good governance is like oil and water. It would never mix. They don't mix. So we need to understand what it is we are for. Are we for politics? Are we for the politics? Or are we for good governance? And I think in there lies the key to our salvation and to our success. within the
Yeah.
region.
Well said, Umar. I mean, there seems to be a what should I say? It's like opposite poles. Good governance and politicians don't seem to be hand in glove, and it ought to be. It ought to be. And as I began the program tonight, speaking to the fact that what is the primary responsibility of a government? Primary responsibility of a government is to protect its citizens. And if I'm reading the information correctly from that CARICOM communique on March 1st, 2024, that Rose referred to, we have a problem in terms of the lyrical content. The music is a very powerful medium. We know of the years ago. I don't know if you would recall that Omar Rose years ago when we had the groups like the Beatles. The Beatles are who started this whole thing about police are pigs, and that caught on through their music. Music is a very, very powerful medium. As a matter of fact, if I would dare say that most of us could remember probably down to the T where we were, what we were doing, or anything of that nature when it comes to a particular song and the matter of music. And so I think it's very important. I just want to repeat this petition. If Dave, if you could just stream it up very slowly that people can read it. We, the concerned citizens of Barbados, write to you. This is to the government of Barbados in light of alarming surge in serious crime, including gun violence and murder, that has deeply affected our nation. Particularly troubling is the increasing involvement of our youth in these violent acts. As an artist with immense influence, especially among the younger generation, this is speaking to the Vibes Cartel concert on the 20th of April, scheduled that is Easter Sunday. Your music plays a significant role in shaping their perspectives and behaviors. With your planned performance in Barbados on Easter Sunday, April 20, 2025, we take this opportunity to call on you at that event to publicly renounce violence in all forms and to stand in solidarity with our efforts to save our youth from the path of crime. And I believe that in calling for that, you're not just calling in terms of, if you could just scroll it up for me, Dave, you're not just calling in terms of calling for it, but you're calling for it in terms of the songs and the lyrics and those types of things that you are engaging. And so the article goes on to treat to the aspect of refraining from performing songs that contain lewd, profane, or violent lyrics that may encourage criminal conduct and behavior. We have seen it. We've seen the young people crashing through security fences on, I think it was down the harbor, or Spring Garden, down that area. These are things that ought to be of concern to all of us. And
Well,
there you see it.
what should be noted? What should be noted as well, Pastor Ferdinand, in Trinidad and Tobago, many of the gang activity in Trinidad and Tobago, this type of violent music was actually the catalyst that drove these gangs to the kind of violence and killings that we see now in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
You're quite right. We have to speak out against it, and it's not just against Vibes Cartel, but or Vibes Cartel, or how to call themselves. I'm not too familiar with some of these artists, but all artists that encourage and is influenced by this type of violent rhetoric in their music. We've seen in the past, artists, they got their deaths because of the lyrical content of some of their music and so on and so forth. And what has happened to the music that we grew up with, Pastor Ferdinand and Mr. Rose? What happened to that music? Where has it gone?
Wow, yeah, that's a that's a searching question, Umar. That's a searching question, and what impact has it had? Music doesn't go away. To be honest with you, I can still remember. I write the songs that make the whole
Yeah.
world
Mhm.
sing. I write the songs of love,
Barry Manilow. Yeah.
especially yes. I mean, that was when I was a
Mhm.
teenager. It sticks
Yeah.
with you, Umar, and it helps to frame your attitudes and your
Yeah.
responses, and it helps to frame your conduct and behavior. And I don't think people really appreciate the power of music. And
I
I mean,
I
we've
don't know.
seen it.
I don't know where's the taxi associations and all of this, but in our taxis, and our maxis here in
but
Trinidad and
but
Tobago, and I think it's the same in Barbados. The type of music that is being played and promoted in these in one commuting from one point to the other. Imagine you finish a hard day's work and you're going home and you're in relaxed mode and you enter a taxi
yeah,
that's playing this type of music. I mean, just imagine how you're going to get home, in
but
what
but
mood
but
and in what frame of mind. How you
but
going to
Umar,
get to work in what mood and what frame of mind listening to this type of rubbish?
a few years ago, there were two things that the government issued with regards to our maxi taxis here, which would, the minibus kind of thing that you have there in thing. One was you had to take out all of the uh, augmented musical equipment out of the minivan. Keep your radio in and whatnot, but you had to take out all the amplifiers and the
That
speakers and all
that
that kind of
happened
stuff
here
had to
too as
come out.
well. Yeah,
Right, but
that happened too here as well.
it has not been policed. If you listen to any of the minivans today, any of them today, you hear them blasting music to the blowing of your ears. If you pull up
Yeah.
alongside of them, your whole car is shaking. And so it's a case where they are not policing, they're not enforcing the law. And
Well,
and and when
it's not just I mean, there's other entities involved here. We have the telecommunications authority. They're the ones who give license to these radio stations that
yes,
promote this type of music and this type of violent behavior and so on. So, I mean, let's call all of them out. Let's call all of them out. Let's not just
yeah,
step at the gates of the politicians, but let's go to the gates of these other people. What are you doing in your capacity? Because you have some say, you have some authority. The taxis association could have a policy amongst themselves. Well, this type of music stays out. I mean, we're not going to be playing this type of music in our taxis and maxis and so on because we want positive vibes, as we would say it here in the Caribbean region. All right, and you certainly don't get a positive vibes to these music. Some of the lyrics I don't understand because of the how you call it, the accent barrier. I would call it in the Caribbean
yes,
region. It's difficult to sometimes understand the Jamaican speak and a Guyanese speak and so on. But the thing about it
yes,
is that for all those who are listening on to this program here tonight, and for all those who are hearing what we're saying, take it back to your spaces, take it back to your hometowns, your people, and talk about it. Let's see if we can get some traction in this discussion, this encouraging this type of response that I think should come from civil society, not necessarily government, because we're going to wait for the rest of our lifetime to get this kind of response from government. We see the prime ministers and heads of state posing with these people and taking pictures with these people. You understand, very proudly,
but you see,
attending
all of
these
that,
sessions with them.
all of that legitimizes the very
Yeah.
same thing. And this is why I said,
Mhm.
politicians are all a lot of long talk. All of that type of conduct legitimizes the persons that you are treating to. I remember our prime minister standing with Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. Everybody knows that they're two of the biggest criminals on the planet, and I make no apologies for
Yeah.
saying that. Ask
Yeah.
Haiti. Ask Haiti what the Clinton Foundation did there and the Gates Foundation have
Yeah,
done there. Ask Haiti.
we
Ask
remember.
Africa.
We remember.
Ask
We
Africa.
remember clearly. Yes.
Okay, so when you see
Mm.
my mother used to make the statement, you can tell a man by the company he keeps. How was it? How did it used to go again?
Birds of a
Something
feather
of a
flock
feather
together.
flock together, and we used to go on, and so do pigs and swine.
Hmm.
We didn't stop there, and when you see that kind of thing, we're a leader. And I don't think many politicians in the Caribbean are leaders. That's the honest to God truth. That's my personal view. Because leaders don't understand, politicians don't understand the influence of leadership. And leadership can affect persons just by visibility. When I worked with BMW Omar, one of the things that BMW wanted to get done is to get high level persons in our countries in their cars. So while Mercedes was fighting for the governor general and the prime minister, I fought for all of the judges. You know how many BMWs they have? There are at least 10 Supreme
Hmm.
Court judges. So when you have a governmental function, you see two Mercedes turn up, but you see 10, 11, 12 BMWs turn up because it's what people see. You see, and they're
Yeah.
influenced by what you see.
Optics. Optics.
What is the optics? You remember the old song, "If a picture paints 1,000 words"? I know it goes on to say,
Yeah.
why can't I
Yeah.
paint
Yeah.
you? But it's a fact. Imagery is very, very important, and who we stand up and align ourselves with. I'm sure there are people that I know from my experience that there are people that have invited me to their different events or different functions because I carry a certain degree of integrity still in my country. And people want to associate with that. And I just won't permit myself to be used by people in that manner, where you have somebody want to come and stand and take a picture with you, but it
Yeah.
legitimizes when I think it was Caswell, when he was a senator, who, when there was the opening of Parliament, his wife was declined an invitation when he arrived to see gang members going into the function. And that is a very serious matter, because when people see that, when young people see that, they feel it's okay. I mean, you're there, you're standing with them. I watch the prime minister during Kadumant get up on stage and carry on. That is not becoming of a leader who's supposed to be setting an example for the younger people who you want to follow and who inevitably will take on leadership responsibility in our country. What message are you communicating to them? So it's really very concerning. I'm actually waiting for KEMAR was on. I don't know if he's had he was there waiting. I was just about to bring him in, but I think he may have had a problem in terms of his connections. But maybe we can just continue the discussion while we await his return. But Rose, you treated to, and I think it's very important that the CARICOM heads of governments, and somebody was querying if it was the CARICOM head or CARICOM heads. It's the CARICOM heads of government, while CARICOM may have a chairperson. It's the CARICOM heads of government. When you see them making these declarations, and then you hear or see nothing for years. You hear nothing from them, and then you see things degenerating in countries, and then you see this big event coming up. It's almost hypocritical, Rose.
But I don't know.
Are you
Rose.
you're hearing me, Rose? Not too sure if you're
Yes,
hearing us.
Pastor Ferdy. It is
Okay,
that.
you need to be a little louder.
Can you hear me?
You're very low.
Okay. Better?
That's much better. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. Um, the thing is that we don't insist on good governance. And our return to the polls in 2022 show that we like to hear what they're telling us and we don't hold them accountable.
Accountable. Yes. Yes.
And therefore, we should have been made aware of these declarations. And our Attorney General, as well as our Minister of Home Affairs, should be meeting with the public and informing the public of these declarations and letting us know what action they will be taking on which ones. So you mean that we're going to have another meeting and the photo shoot will occur again?
Yes. And nothing
And a
happens.
statement, so many statements
Nothing
have been
happens.
made on Haiti.
Yes.
So many declarations have been made on Haiti.
Haiti. Well, I want to
But
bring in
c'est
Kimar.
la vie.
I want to bring in Kimar quickly, Rose and Umar. Kimar, I want to welcome you to the show tonight. I saw you coming a little earlier, and then I missed you. It's good to have you back, and I'm sure you've been listening to the show over time tonight. I know there are a couple of areas that you wanted to address as well, but maybe you can thread it through from where we were tonight. So welcome, Kimar, to the show again tonight. Pleasure to have you with
Yeah.
us.
Yes, good night, Pastor Ferdinand. How are you doing? Good
Doing
night to
pretty well, thanks.
good night to Dr. Umar. Happy to be on with you again on CARICOM Mondays. Rose, as always, nothing without help from God. Um, glad to see you as always. And good night to all of the members of the Loyal Opposition. Very glad to be here to see you all. And good night to Marcia Weeks and Dave Weeks, Caswell Franklin, Maxine McLean, and all the other hosts on the program as usual. Uh, Interesting discussion so far, Pastor Ferdinand. I've been keenly listening to, I would say, the elders, the seniors discuss, particularly the social issue
You mean you
of
mean you mean Umar and Rose?
we're gonna say everyone.
Dear
Um,
me. Yes.
I was listening to some of what you were saying about Vibes Cartel.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have a different perspective than you guys, respectfully, right? On Vibes Cartel. Uh, no, I was interested in listening to your guys' comments. I even saw a petition going around and not being circulated or so.
Yes.
But I want to caution everyone a bit about not coming across as hypocritical or cherry picking or targeting the largest, uh, I would say, the bigger target in the room. So I would say Vice Cartel is but a small problem of what we are experiencing. Right? I would say a more So at one point in time, Bob Marley was regarded as a socially, disdained person. Bob Marley that we all listen to and celebrate. You know, people would say that white girls would come to the Caribbean and listen to Bob Marley music and smoke marijuana and engage in, sexual activity. So, and Bob Marley was honored with a series of awards and recognized all across the world, celebrated in many cultures across the world. But at one point in time, he was not socially accepted. Right? We listen to songs, right, and music from. So if I can give you an example, the song by Seal called "Kiss by a Rose," right? I observed many senior persons listening to that song when it plays on the radio. It's a very nice song, but at the core of it, that is a song about cocaine and the use of cocaine. And it said, I've been kissed, I've been kissed by a rose on, right? It said, when it snows, snowing is an activity for the use of cocaine. But we casually sing that, right? And maybe because it is not so aggressive in the lyrics or not about no violent crime or murder, we will look past it and not hear or recognize what we're singing. But many children have been listening to that song for years, right? If we listen to uh, some of the more mellow classics that a lot of what our parents listen to, it was actually very sexually aggressive songs, but on a more mellow and lighter rhythm, right? Promoting sexual promiscuity. Uh, we had men singing songs about being in love with 13-year-old girls, right? There are songs coming from the international world about pedophilia, and they are played on the radios and the areas of Barbados casually, and there's no outrage to, have them blocked or removed from the areas, right? So my thing is, if we're going to do a cleaning of the culture, we have to do it holistically and not just cherry pick who we believe has some influence over society. So we put the responsibility and the burden on the shoulders of that person and shift the blame away from the persons who really deserve the blame, right? So at the core of it, Vibes Cartel cannot cause the borders of a country to be weak and having firearms flowing through it. He cannot cause that. He cannot cause the taking of bribes from law enforcement officials to turn a blind eye to firearms on the street, right? So at the core of it, these are the reasons for the violence in society. So yes, music has an influence on some of it, but at this day and age, Vibes Cartel, as I said, is but one of the many different people in society who has influence, right? And if you hear some of the songs they're singing, it sounds like ABC compared to what? Well, Voice Cartel sounds like ABC compared to what I hear sometimes playing on the airwaves in Barbados, right? And they're played every day on 95.3, 98.1, Slam 101 FM. Sometimes the government CBC radio station, right? So I am saying that again. Let us go after Vibes Cartel as a person, putting that responsibility. But let us shoulder that responsibility at the persons who really has the power to do something about the crime and the violence. Right?
Accepted. Accepted.
Yes. So the next point I want to make is that in Barbados, we promote crop over, right? So I've heard some of the Christian community speak about the lewdness, and the sexual nature surrounding crop over. But crop over is at the core of Barbados' economy in terms of driving foreign exchange and being a national festival for the country, right? But still, you have women in costumes, sometimes lewd costumes, well, many times lewd costumes, and we have CBC camera at crop over filming women in some of the skimpiest outfits on national TV with little children by the roadsides watching every single thing happening right there at crop over.
Mhm.
As that is celebrated in Barbados, right?
Words.
And then we choose now to point a finger at Vibes Cartel, right? Passport. So I am saying, let us not again take the road of saying or taking the responsibility from the persons who deserve it and say, well, he or she is the reason for the music that is singing, but there's no personal responsibility, right? There's no personal responsibility happening in the homes. There's no responsibility happening in the schools, and there's no responsibility happening at the levels of communities, at the levels of police, at the levels of the politicians, right? So let me say this: we watch movies, Pastor Ferdinand, violent movies, horrors with people being beheaded, women being raped, children being kidnapped, and we watch that as entertainment, right? And we are at the movies, but not so much now at the Globe Cinema and all these big cinemas. We get it directly on our phones, so we stream it, YouTube, right? And we jump up and celebrate movies, starting back from movies of the Terminator's time, well, cowboy movies, well, Western movies, where the adage of the day is shooting people, killing people. And we celebrate that, right? But now, here's a man from the Caribbean who's perceived to have worldwide influence through music, and we come down hard on him, but we do not come down hard on Hollywood. To tell Hollywood, be more responsible in your content in the movies you're putting out, right? Hollywood, in attempting to tackle the problem, right? In attempting to tackle the problem, you have rated movies. So you have R-rated movies, X-rated movies, NC-17 movies, PG-13 movies, 18 and above movies, and trying to get some level of, I would say, protection that children shouldn't be exposed to certain content. Right? That is fine. So we give children cell phones. We don't put any guards in place for them to monitor, whatever. Fine. We have a culture where children, particularly in the Caribbean, spend a lot of time on public transportation, right? Exposed away from, I would say, called responsible adults, and environments where they're going to get exposed to, so many different things, right? So at those moments, Pastor Ferdinand, when children are left unsupervised for too long, things can happen. Things can happen. So my thing is, if you do not practice responsible parenting, Pastor Ferdinand, responsible parenting, well, sometimes your children become socially awkward. Sometimes you as a parent could do all you could do, give your child everything on God's earth, and child still turns out socially awkward. You grow your child in the most pristine environment, never listening to foul music, never being involved in anything promiscuous out to the way, you know, and still that child turns out socially awkward. Pastor Ferdinand. Right? So I am saying, while acknowledging the influence and the responsibility for the content some of these artists put out, yes, right, Pastor Ferdinand, some of the things that we allow to pass right by on a daily basis is far worse than the instance of, I'm referring back to Vibes Cartel because the discussion was premised around him, right? Yeah. So again, not necessarily Vibes Cartel. So, well, we also will focus on one perspective of it, whereas he will sing violent music. Then there's the instance where he sings conscious music, right? There's the instance where he sings like girl music, music for the females. Right? So while I would say yes, let us have more of that clean stuff, let us have more of the the better quality music. Black him out for a moment. I think about how many other instances that a Vibes Cartel type person, exists in the world, and there's nothing we could do to really ban our people from consuming this music. Like, there's no national. Let me wrap on the point quickly and then pass over to you. Right? There's no national guard, Pastor Ferdinand, or no national filter like in the UK where certain songs we know for sure will never ever ever make it to the airwaves. There's no national guard or enforcement from the political level to stamp these things out, and therefore they end up free flowing in society. And again, my point is, again, responsibility, yes, on the artist part, but also, again, take personal responsibility that is only a small part or a small dot in the entire river of this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think KEMAR, we won't. I'm not in disagreement with you in the context that there are other elements in the pot, so to speak. I mean, I mentioned tonight the loud music on minibuses, and I'm not speaking of the volume. I'm speaking of the type of music. When the government had enforced that public transport could not have amplified music in their vehicles, and you hear it all the time. You see no policing of it. You see no action taken to to punish, for the lack of a better expression, to censor those vehicles that are carrying that type of music. You also have, as I mentioned again tonight, the Prime Minister on stage during Kaduma conducting herself in a particular manner. I don't think any of those things we are excusing. I think tonight the specific, in the context of the fact that the concert is upcoming in April the 20th, had to do with Vibes Cartel, and I think that would be a credible criticism. But that is not to negate or to remove any of the other matters to which you have referred. Even tonight, I spoke to the fact that leaders, we were talking about, Umar, you remember I mentioned a little while ago, the matter of association, seeing pictures taken with people, and the influence that has, not just in terms of music, but the optics that you can have with the context of how young people or individuals can feel a legitimacy to behave a particular way because they see you associated with a person. You mentioned the aspect, KEMAR, of no national filter. There was a time, I don't know if it still exists, but there was a time that we had, and I think I saw somebody mention it in the chat. I think there was a time we had a body that paid attention to matters of this nature in terms of the type of movies, the different ratings, PG this and PG that, and who could go and see that. I don't know if that still pertains, and if it pertains to music. I remember at one time it did. You also had an introduction, you will recall, during Kadooman, of something called the Walk Up Police, and you treated to the vulgarity and the lewdness of conduct and behavior, and oh, there what's the word, um, lewdness and the skimpiness of attire, and you can see people behaving in the manner that the walk-up police were supposed to arrest you for behavior right in front of them, and nothing done, just people standing up there and laughing and so on. So I think there is some credibility to the comments you're making in terms of the holistic approach, because I think parenting has a critical nature, critical aspect in which you're teaching values. I am mindful of the fact that very often parents use the technology available to the children as a way of getting rid of them out of their space, and getting them occupied doing something while they're not bothered by them then, and then they don't pay attention to what they're doing. I
Right.
had an instance recently
But,
where
but it just, right,
yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick comment.
uh,
Based on some of the comment that I saw made online, right? We all have our different opinions, but I just want to encourage everybody to be respectful.
Absolutely. We treated to that earlier in the program.
Right? Be respectful to the presenters. Everybody has a different perspective.
Yes.
Because this is why people, particularly young people, don't wish to share in these type of spaces. One, and especially on social topics, right? Because you see the aggressiveness coming out, and you never really take the point of what is being said.
Correct.
Right? We're not focusing on Vibes Cartel and a concert or not. Right? The point is not about a concert or not. Just listen to what is being said. That realistically, we accept so many other things that are far more dangerous. We consume content that is far more dangerous than Vibes Cartel, right? But let us not ride a bandwagon for because a popular person is coming, so it will give us hype, and so should be socially accepted in the Christian community because we criticize a man that is supposed to be singing violent music. Hey, I'm not here for that. The point where you look up to celebrities to provide social guidance, you have failed. Right? Where a society has reached the point.
We see that all over, we see that all over the United States. I personally do not look up to celebrities. I don't think being a celebrity necessarily qualifies you to be a leader. But unfortunately, celebrities are tremendous influencers. And I think much has to be said with regard to their content in whatever area of endeavor they're involved in. Um, like I said, I think the aspect of Vice Cartel has come out of the fact that the concert is upcoming, but it does not negate the fact that we entertain far too much of this aspect in our day-to-day living, and that I concede. And there's a need to have greater monitoring, if you want to call it that, of that type of thing.
I want to make
You were
some
yeah.
Yeah. No, one of the things that I observe is that we still in our Caribbean islands, we still have that ability to stand up and speak out and speak about things that affect us. And the reason why we're having this conversation tonight, this particular hour, at this particular time, And I want us to appreciate this because it is important for us to understand, is because someone somewhere decided to use the Vibes cartel situation to create an avenue for discussion and debate. And this is important in a healthy society. And now that we're having this conversation and we are speaking about, and KEMAR is quite right, and I agree with him 100%. And we're speaking about the issues and why it is we have addressed this issue by cartel, and we have refused to look at the other aspects and the other things that are far more damaging, as he has said, is the fact that we have that right and that freedom to do so. And sometimes we need triggers in society, we need props in society in order to raise issues. I remember a young man in Trinidad, he was known as the Rabbit Man. And before then, he was nobody. He knew nothing about farming and so on. And when we took him to the community where there was a lot of farming and so on taking place, I remember one particular conversation we were having, and he asked the question, how it is you go about picking the bananas off a banana tree? Do you climb the tree? And you know, everybody started to laugh at him and so on. That was his level of understanding when it comes to agriculture and so on. And he became very proficient at it, and he started to rear rabbits and so on, and he was eventually known throughout Trinidad and Tobago as the Rabbit Man. And he wanted me to help him to market the sale of rabbit meat as a more healthier option than chicken. And I told him, I said, it's a very good idea that you have, but something has to happen. Something has to happen to trigger that conversation. You can't just come out just so one day and say, well, okay, rabbit meat better than chicken to eat. Something has to trigger that conversation. Something controversy, something that probably somebody would have said, or somebody in a position of governance, or somebody in a position, a very high position in society, or somebody from the agricultural society or so on, making a statement that comes off as controversial or something like that, to give this, what you're asking, some credibility and the opportunity for you to come forward now and explain to people how rabbit meat is more a healthier choice than chicken. And if that does not happen, I would not be able to get you on an interview on a television and so on, because he was asking me to see if I could get him. And so I'm saying that something has to happen in order for this debate or this conversation to take place. And this is exactly what is happening tonight. So, KEMAR, I think it is good that this, whosoever decided to make this an issue, I think it was good and it was well intended. And I don't think, as you quite rightly say, we should, focus everything on this artist, but on the whole issue of entertainment. All right? And we have people falling into that category, all the entertainers, the celebrities, and so on and so forth, and how influential they are. The other point I want to make very quickly is every human being has within them something called desire. And this is a broad topic, but I just want to see how best I could simplify it. Have something in them called desire. Now, this desire that they have, an individual have, if it is propagated, if it is given the ability to grow and to expand because of environment, because of your association, because of what you're exposed to, that is going to become a problem for you or problem for society. And we mentioned something about it earlier regarding the gays and so on, and people questioning, how come people turn out to be this way and so on and so forth. If, for instance, I have a child, a son, and there is this desire that is within him. It's dormant. It's dormant, right? Because there's no influence, there's no encouragement and so on. And I have him in an environment, and KEMAR is quite right, when he made the point about responsible parenting. And I expose my son to an environment or some content that may speak to that desire that he has. Let's take, for instance, he is attracted to men, to young boys. And the environment that I've exposed him to, or the content that I would have allowed him to be exposed to, fuels that desire in him and causes that desire to take root and to grow and to blossom and to bear fruit. I'm going to have a gay son on my hand before you know it. But if I was a responsible parent that understood my child and saw that perhaps my child will have these negative desires within him or her, and prevent them from exposing or prevent stuff like that being exposed to them, I would be able to save my son at a very early age. And this is the reason why it is important for us to have this conversation with regards to our artists and our entertainers, because they are the ones who present the content that fuel this desire in most of the people. The desire to dress, to go skimpy looking, the desire to behave badly in a fete or in a party setting, the desire to jump the fence and to storm parties and so on and so forth, the desire to smoke drugs or to take drugs, the desire to drink alcohol, the desire to live a particular lifestyle. And they fuel that desire in much of the people. And this is what is dangerous. Correct. Government needs to play a part.
In the whole thing.
Government agencies, civil society, and most important, as KEMAR said, parents.
Yes.
But we were never given lessons in good parenting. So the church has to play a very important role.
Yeah.
And our leaders in society, and what it is we propagate and what we promote. So this issue of Vybz Kartel being targeted may be a good thing in the sense that it has started a conversation which should have been started a very long time ago, as Pastor Ferdinand would have said.
Yeah. You know, there's a comment here, and I just wanted to address this comment where it is said that, KEMAR didn't agree with the panel earlier, and he's upset. KEMAR is not upset with persons that don't agree with him. What he's asking us is to keep our decorum and to maintain civility. And I think that is what we promote on this show. We have this is the show tonight, this segment here is a classic demonstration of democracy, where people are able to exchange different views and opinions, because you'll find people will see things differently. And it's important that we engage each side of the conversation so that we can bring a well-informed conclusion. If you don't know what's happening over the left, you don't know what's happening right or whatever, you can't come to an informed decision. And I think It is important for us to maintain civility. And there are times that I have had to KEMAR right here I'll go back to my phones and I'll send a message and I'll indicate to the person involved, we want to keep things civil. We don't want name calling and all that kind of stuff. That is the woke culture that we will not entertain in the Caribbean. There's certain things that we must not import into the Caribbean. We do not need this woke mentality that is prevailing in the United States in our Caribbean, where we have always had healthy, passionate discussions politically and on religiously, and we walk away being friends. Up in America, people walk away blatant enemies. And I mean, you're talking about people who would not even go to a Thanksgiving dinner because somebody voted for Trump and somebody
Yeah.
voted for Harris. That is the epitome of immaturity if you ever saw it. Okay, and I make no apologies for saying that. These are the kind of conversations. They're tough conversations we have to have. And I was going to make the point that recently I personally had to engage a child in terms of a tablet they were using, and their parent had indicated to them not to use a particular app, but they went and used it. I simply took the thing up and disabled the app so they couldn't get back on it. Because that's the responsibility, or should I say that's responsible parenting. You can't just put a child in front of something and just leave it. You have to keep monitoring to ensure that because there are a lot of these animations today and a lot of these what we call them cartoons that promote a lot of stuff that years ago we would never see this stuff. Today is
Yeah.
coming out, and you have to be very careful what you leave to your children to see. But I also want to quickly add, KEMAR, before I give you a couple of minutes for your closing comments. I want to quickly add a definition for freedom. I think people don't understand what freedom is. And many years ago, I was attending an event, a service, a convocation, and the minister in that convocation made this statement, and I wrote it in the flyleaf of my Bible, and I committed it to my memory. I've never forgotten it. He said this: freedom is not the right to do what you want, but it is the power to do what you ought. And I want people to stop and think about that statement. Freedom is not the right to do what you want. That's not freedom. But freedom is the power to do what you ought. Because anybody can do what they like, but that doesn't make you free. As a matter of fact, it enslaves you to your passions.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. You're a slave to your passions. You're not free. But when you have the capacity to do something, but you choose not to, that is freedom. This is something, for example, that Martin Luther King demonstrated many years ago. He could have engaged the racism of his day in a totally different manner. He was free to do it, but he chose to go a different route, and that's where we get this classic statement that he made that everybody keeps repeating these days, that you don't want to judge a man by the color of his skin, but by his character. I think it's something along that line. So it's necessary for us to appreciate what freedom is. The right, it's not the right to do what you want, but the power to do what you ought. And I am thankful for the environment that we have, where in our democracy we have the capacity to express ourselves one to the other without becoming enemies. And I think that is very, very important for us to be able to walk away with. So, KEMAR, I'm going to give you, we got 3 minutes left, give you your opportunity for any closing comments. I'm looking forward to having you back next Monday, because we want to address a couple of things that we chatted about through
Yeah.
messaging. Um,
So, yeah. So in wrapping up, Freddie, I would say a couple of things. Um, irrespective of if my truthful opinions are well accepted. That's not a bother of mine, you know. I've lived long enough to know that my experiences can't be experiences of you or anybody else. Um, and I learned that in particularly from the David Thompson situation,
Hmm.
where he was speaking about crime and violence, crime and violence. He was mocked, ignored, you know, made a
Hmm.
mockery of. But
I
no,
remember that.
uh, 25 years later, now we are suffering the
The government didn't
consequences.
pay attention. Yes.
So I'm willing to accept, probably at some point in time, um, my opinion, we will see the results of what I'm trying to say. Um, from the perspective of we have a situation, right, that is being magnified now by the idea of a concert, Pastor Ferdinand, right? But that concert encompasses so many emotions, so many different perspectives, so many deeper societal issues that need to be addressed, right? So again, we're not focusing on the man himself, but we're looking at the issues that encompass all of it and what is generating the discussion behind his presence in the country. So I want persons to take a look in the mirror first, like take a look in the mirror first, and to take a step back and look at it and say, well, um, I might criticize Kima for his opinion, but does my daughter listen to Vibes Cartel? Does my son listen to Vibes Cartel? If I go and I ask my daughter or my child or my granddaughter or uh my grand whoever, my niece, do you know Vibes Cartel? Do you listen to their music? Are you going to their concert? You would hear the amount of yeses, Pastor Ferdinand, that will shock many persons on here who are criticizing, right? So I am saying to you now that you are in that position, what are you going to do, right? How did you get in that position now where your household would willfully partake in a scenario like that? And it comes back to the point, Pastor Ferdinand, about responsibility now,
Yes.
right? So, like I say, at some point in time, when it gets at home, there's a saying that sometimes people ignore the violence because it doesn't come knocking at their door. They only heed when, it hits right at home. Then people usually sit up and see the alternate view. So, not that it was
No, no,
cut it,
no pun
no pun
intended, right?
intended, right?
No pun intended. I like that. The
Yeah,
alternative view. I love it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah, Rose, that is a little snippet of advertising for Thursday. Oh, I love it. Are you picking us up, Rose? You're muted. Let me unmute you here. You go ahead. Go ahead. You're
Yes,
picking us up. I was saying that Kimar was saying that it's an alternate view. So I said that was a little push for his program on Thursday night.
indeed. And he always presents
Ah,
very good views. And I was off camera listening to the contribution, listening to his putting it into perspective as a young man.
getting some
What
feedback
I
from
do,
you. Getting some feedback from your mic or something there. That's feeding
it
back
was my
through to
cell
us.
phone that I was listening to while I was backstage listening to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's
I was
gone away
listening
now.
to you. Um,
Yes.
my thing is the very fact that these heads of government could identified these areas as problematic, including declarations on lyrics and behaviors, would suggest to me that there are concerns. There are concerns, and we have a responsibility to hold them responsible. And I would say that think about speaking to your MP about crime and safety. That is their responsibility to ensure good governance for all, whether you voted for them or not. And beginning with our situation here, with our Prime Minister now the incoming chair, the new chair, I think that she needs to step up, action, drive action, no more grabbing the mic and talking. This is not town hall meeting. This crime and safety is a national issue. And let us know if you don't want to come, send your AG, send your Home Affairs Minister, and address these matters and let us know what progress is being made. After all, you move about your business with security and with your security detail. We walking about dodging and scared that that bullet might land in our own details. So we have to be very persistent in asking for that representation at CARICOM.
I think it's very important. Thank you, Rose. I think it's very important. I think points have been made on all sides tonight, because I believe, and I've always felt, and I agree with you, Umar and KEMAR, that parenting plays a large part of the development of a child. Parenting. People need to take the time, and you know, I hear you say, Umar, that we weren't taught, but my mind goes back to my parents. They weren't taught either, but they were strong churchgoers. They had, as a result of that, they had very strong morals and values, and those morals and values were communicated to their children. We had to go to Sunday school as little children, 3 o'clock on a Sunday evening, to the Anglican church where we attended. I'm sure in the context of your Muslim community, you all have a similar kind of thing where you're growing up. Your children are growing up under a particular framework of values and morals and so on, and we hope that that is perpetuated down through time. But unfortunately, there were a generation or two where that faded away, where you had people dropping children to church rather than coming, and that example which children are looking to for adults was lost. And then you go to the whole aspect of schools, where teachers back in the days that Rose would be very familiar with are not the same thing as teachers today. My mother was a mother at school as a principal, and I remember the number of times that she would have children in the office giving them lunch. When children showed deviant behaviors, they wouldn't just get flogged. They would, she would have them in and talk with them, have their parents in, talk with them, and so forth. I don't know how much of that happens today. I'm not necessarily talking about the flogging. I have my own views on that, but I am talking about the kind of care children got back then, as opposed to what they get now. And then you, of course, you have the influence of that we mentioned of the minibuses, yeah, and KEMAR rightfully indicated. Our children travel on those minibuses, and I can tell you, the stuff that they listen to on that. Some of it, I dare say, vibes might pale in comparison to some of the stuff that I hear when some of those buses go by. So I believe that there is a need, and there's that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. But I believe that there is a need for us to recognize, and this is why the government, and I say this, the government has to get off its high horse and come down to the level of civil society and respectfully engage all components of civil society, the private sector, business, school, teachers, parents, churches, ministers, mosques, imams, whatever's in the society, in
Uh,
order to bring a solution to what we're facing today.
Sorry, I wanted to make a quick point before you go.
Yes, sure, sure.
Um, just to reiterate on the responsibility point. At those type of concerts, the audience are all over 18 years old, consenting adults who would pay money. No children will be at that show. No school child or any person who's 18 years old or below 18 years old will be at that show. So all consenting adults, right? So
But are there going to be people there checking that, KEMAR? How are they going to know? I mean, you know that there's some 13 and 14-year-olds that look like 18 and 19. How are they going to police that?
To police it, yeah.
yeah, well, I
I
mean,
think that comes back to the parents.
yeah, your child, you as a parent, if your child as below 18 ends up at a voice cartel concert, I think you're the problem, not voice cartel or anybody else.
Yeah.
You should know where your child is at. That's below 18. At most times, you should be at home in your bed during concert hours.
I think one of the things too that happens there, KEMAR, because there was a point in time, if my children left me to go to a particular place, I expect them to be there. And
Right,
then I hear they're somewhere else and they haven't contacted me to get my permission. I mean, that was something that I never tolerated that at all.
right. So we all, but let's not. God, that will open a whole another discussion. So responsible adults, right? Responsible adults will go and spend the money and go down there, much like responsible adults will take money, go to the strip club. Responsible adults will take money and go and do other nefarious things, Pastor Ferdinand, right? So my thing here is we need to do more social work, right? As a good Christian community, we need to do more social work to,
Yes.
to influence our people, right? With the word, if you're a full Christian, you should be able to influence your people on a level that those type of things are for sure not appealing because these type of adages will always exist in the world,
Hmm.
right? So we need to start reaching our people and start seeing ourselves as weak in the world and defenseless against these type of things when you could actually use it as an opportunity now to step up and do practically what the world requires of you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you, KEMAR. I've often said it, and I've alluded to it on many occasions. I don't think we have taught our people who sit in our churches how to be what I call marketplace ministers. And that is people who are able to do what we do in our assemblies. They're able to do it outside of our assemblies, not necessarily in the same style or in the same way, because it would be different for different personalities and so on. And we don't have the time to get into that tonight. But I do believe that there is a need for people to stop being Christians on Sunday and start being Christians Monday through Friday or Saturday. You know, we tend to hold our Christianity for church, but we need to let it go on. And I'm sure, Umar, in your all own religious context, you have similar situations. You know, where people are religious on the days or the times of celebration that you have, but get outside of that, and you begin to wonder if these are the same people that you saw in the mosque or in the church or wherever we have our worship. Huh? So thank you very much for the alternate view, KEMAR. No, again, no pun intended. Thank you
Yeah,
so
no,
much.
no
And
problem.
I look forward, as I said, you know, next week I won't tell the loyal opposition what we were going to engage tonight, but I'm sure it's still going to be hot topic for next Monday. I'm positively sure that will happen. I want to thank you again, KEMAR, for being on and bringing us aware of some of the things behind potentially that could exist behind the recent crashes that we've seen in the States. I haven't actually seen that crash of the second jet, and your comment tonight has intrigued me, and I'm going to go and see where I can take a look at that, because um, Dave posted up tonight. He put up tonight while you were speaking about it, a report that was being given by, I guess, some of the investigating persons, and they were talking about destruction 3 to 5 blocks. And I find it hard to think of a private jet crashing into the ground, having that degree of damage. I'm not an expert at it, but I did see the comment made there.
There were no findings of the fuselage of the aircraft either.
Right, and they're
Nothing
still
resembling
trying
an
to
aircraft
locate
was
the
found.
they're still trying to locate the black box or something like that as well.
Yeah.
But we will hope that a transparent investigation would follow with that. And of course, again, we want to express our condolences to the families of those victims in both of those instances, if the second one is what it is. And thank you, Rose, for again. I've seen the comments on there. Another great presentation tonight. And I want to thank you for your expressions with regards to the police officer who passed away over the weekend. I did not know him. At least I don't think so. I haven't seen a picture of him, because I know a lot of people by seeing them, but not necessarily by their names. So I do thank you for expressing condolences on behalf of the Marcia Weeks show and all of us. And it's good to have Marcia back. I think she was on Friday. She's been back about a week now, and it was good to have her back and leading the shows. And there were pungent shows, and we want to welcome you back, Marcia, and Dave. Dave is doing all that background work for me again tonight. Thank you, Dave, so very much for all the work that you do in the background. So thank you all as well, all of you of the loyal opposition, sons and daughters, all, I think is how you would put it, Rose, that made this show possible tonight. We appreciate your presence every time the show is on. Thank you. And we appreciate you very, very much. So God bless you all. We want to wish you a great, great night. Good night to you, Rose. Good night to you, KEMAR. Good night to you, Umar. And trust you have a restful night this evening. All right. And to all of you on the Marcy Week show, the loyal opposition, God bless you and good night.
Good night.